1, go!
Now, all the way back in 1988, a year filled with neon, Jerry curls, and bad Weird Owls, the Nakamura Manufacturing Company, or to be known as Namco for short, released one of the earliest examples of a polygonal racer titled Winning Run. As a milestone in the third dimension, this cockpit-based Formula One sim was the first leg of a race to arcade and eventually console supremacy. A winding 230 plus mile per hour boulevard that slams head on a whole decade later with the game that we're here to hit the track with. One of the coolest, swaggiest, and most vibed out racers to ever exist. Ridge Racer Type 4. But before we get behind the wheel of Real Racing Roots 99, let's circle back to the origins of this series and why nothing that came before it, or really since, has ever toppled the unstoppable GOAT, known simply as R4. I know it's probably hard to imagine now, but there was a time when Sega was damn near on top of the entire gaming world. An absolute arcade juggernaut of the 80s and into the 90s, the company would revolutionize racing games forever with Daytona USA in late 1993. As a critical and commercial darling, with a Saturn port on deck to launch with the console, Sony was left chomping at the bit to find their own arcade racer to lift their budding PlayStation into first place. Developed on Namco's System 22 hardware, Ridge Racer was the heaviest head-to-head competition that Daytona USA had in the early 90s. Released mere months after the Sega Classic took its pole position, the stage was set. When Sony secured the home port of the hit racing game as a launch title, it made a massive difference in the console's initial success and helped it to begin to pull away from its contemporaries. Now, next came Ridge Racer Revolution. More like Ridge Racer Iteration, am I right? Nah, I actually loved this game. At least the tracks that I played from it. Released in 1996 here in the States, I never did play the full version, but my brother and I had a demo disc. I think it came from a Pizza Hut box or something. Wherever it was from, I damn near burned a hole in that John from replaying the first couple tracks that were available. The most significant upgrade that Revolution saw was just how much faster it felt, as well as the beefed up AI and the much desired multiplayer modes. Now, Revolution did incredibly well for the company from both a critical and commercial perspective, so a sequel was given the go almost immediately. Now, the first game developed solely for a console, Ridge Racer, took the series in a very different direction. Released here in May 1997, it was much darker and now chasing the need for speed street stylings instead of Daytona USA. It was a pretty grungy-ass, great-looking game. Now, the realism was turned up, but the fun factor and style was seemingly turned down. Guess it needed a little more tuning, huh? Yeah. Reception showed that the series had hit a bit of a stale period and needed a fresh coat of paint to catch up. And with the next game in the series, they'd not only catch up, they'd leave the entire competition choking in their dust. 1999 was one of the craziest years in gaming. These devs were wild and shun. Like, honestly, it was only beat out by 1998 and maybe even 1997. Yeah, the late 90s were exploding with greatness.
You had to be there.
But we're talking about 99, and that joint had it all. I mean, we had Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. We had
Soul Calibur. We had Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Pokemon Silver and Gold. Shenmue. Final Fantasy VIII.
All of these incredible games released within the 365 days that made up the last year of our second millennium, but amongst them all, I for sure played Type 4 the most. I was obsessed with this game, so when I saw that it popped up on PS Plus Premium, I knew that a review was in short order. At the close of the 1900s, there was a new king of the racing hill though, Gran Turismo. It's pretty hard to understate just how incredible this game looked and played at this time with the realistic racing sim on lock. So the fabled Racer series decided to go in a bold new direction. Released in North America on May 4th, 1999, Ridge Racer Type 4 was a success immediately upon release, both dollars and cents and decimals and rank. Scoring an 88 on Metacritic and an 8.6 user rating, it still stands as the highest rated game in the series on that website and would also go on to sell well over 1 million units worldwide. Now, I was there obviously, and I remember seeing those numbers come out. I remember playing the first stage on a PSM demo and I knew this was it, man. I knew Type 4 was it. And today, when you flip the switch on this game, it will not take you long to realize what you're getting with Ridge Racer Type 4. This is style meets substance meets speed. I don't know what the fuck Namco was on in the late 90s, but their FMV intros go so hard. I swear I missed this side of gaming. Everything's real time now, which is dope, but man, those pre-baked intros, incredible. Tekken 2 and 3 are emblazoned in my mind forever. Soul Blade, Soul Cow, all of the combination of cutting-edge computer renders, next-level music, and incredible cinematography cut a scene better than nearly any game studio could, decide to Squaresoft. And they took all that experience, knowledge, and steez to give us one of the absolute greatest intros of all time in Type 4. Sheesh. Now, after you've wiped your brow, post the, dance breakout from the last 130 seconds or so, you're immediately greeted to what can only be described as the color of the sun rising. That yellow be yellow. For real though, one of the coolest parts of R4 has got to be the look of its UI. Type 4 walks so modern Persona could fly. Everything about this game just drips with vibrancy, flair, and panache. It's just so pleasant to the eye, even through the TVs of today. Now, UI in the late 90s gaming space was not often a pretty sight. For most games, they seemed utilitarian at best, basically a last thought, something that was just thrown together to get you from point to point, barely clearing the bar of coherent, let alone game-altering. Now, Ridge Racer Type 4 says,
fuck all that.
It takes you on a ride of neon streaks, bold elements, and an incredibly strong identity. And that's all before you even choose your mode. Now, the main mode in Ridge Racer Type 4 is the Grand Prix. This is the game's story mode. You first select your team from 4 in total: the French RC Micro Mouse Mappy, Japanese Pack Racing Club, Italy's racing team Bugaloo, and America's own Dig Racing Team, each with various tuning difficulties that have an effect on your performance versus the ease of play. After you select your team, you're introduced to the manager of said team with a very slick and potent visual novel style. They'll probably be talking some shit about how terrible you are as a driver, but you'll win them over in time. Now, your eyes will be cascaded by all the sunshine yellows and deep blacks with a hand-drawn portrait that gives you a variety of their emotions surprisingly well. Now, after you've been talked to like a small child, you'll choose your manufacturer from a selection of 4. 2 are grip types and 2 are drift types. This seems to make a much bigger difference compared to the team, in my personal opinion. I prefer the more arcadey drifting feel personally, but I found that I had to stop thinking about Mario Kart 8 before I got locked the fuck back in like my 13-year-old self used to be. But after a few races, I was back to crushing the competition. Well, mostly. Some combos of team and manufacturer are actually pretty tough. But then you get into the races. There are 8 tracks in total across Japan and America, with 2 heats of 2 and a final heat of 4. In the first heat, you'll need to come in at least 3rd, second heat is 2nd, and in the final 4 races, you have to come in 1st. You will get 4 attempts to do this, and if you don't, it's game over. So,
better luck next time.
Gameplay is pretty simple. You usually have 2 or 3 laps, with the final race having 6. Holding down X accelerates, square is to brake, and triangle switches from first person with a rear view mirror to a third person perspective. If you have it set to manual, you have the triggers to shift up and down. As you complete a heat, you'll receive a new vehicle based on how you placed. If you get 3rd and 1st, for instance, you'll receive a different dialogue from your manager and a unique vehicle for that combination. The biggest change is top speed, but each car has a varying aesthetic and has a slightly altered handling as well. As the game gets faster, it also gets harder, sort of like the various CCs in the aforementioned Mario Kart, which I've obviously played way too much of lately. Not to mention that there are 320 cars to collect in all. Well, 321 if you include the secret car. But really, there are only about 40 or 44 main cars that get skinned and changed slightly based on your positioning. After about an hour of racing and completing the Grand Prix, you are treated to an epilogue that ties up each of the 4 stories. These are oddly really touching. And to be honest, I was really impressed with just how interesting and charming the tales all were. From an arranged marriage gone awry to a manager dealing with the death of an old friend and driver, along with the grief that brings, I was actually mega invested in this in-between stuff. A couple of them are less endearing than the others. I'm looking at you, nerdy ass Robert Chrisman. But even with him, it was pretty cool, and they all do a good job of bringing you in, giving you something to really sink your tires into. There are other modes to play as well that allow you to do time attacks. There's a garage that allows you to alter the look of your car with colors and decals, and even more, just enough to keep you going beyond only the Grand Prix. Oh, and if you're ever confused by just how advanced this game looks and are trying to figure out when it was released, in one of the stories you get a damn fax.
Yeesh.
A facsimile, guys. Do my Gen Z viewers even know what that is? Or maybe dial-up internet?
I took a box of Dwight's stationery. So from time to time, I send Dwight faxes from himself.
From the future.
Anyway, they're totally worth the read, and it gives you something to look forward to as you work your way through each track. And y'all, it must be said, the courses that you do the racing on are such a damn vibe. I mean, you have moody sunsets, village cliffsides, airports with planes landing all around you. Type 4 has got such a supreme command of style and visual appeal. There may only be 8 courses with some reverse variations to return to, but they really are gorgeous, and you could tell they put a lot of time into this. Taking place in fictionalized real-world locales, these courses have so many memorable landmarks, touches, and movement that the second I finished a lap of any of them, the memories came flooding back. I mean, them folks was cooking for real. And the beauty comes in large part to the transition that the series made to garage shading. And no, that is not talking shit to this guy. He's been through enough, okay? He can't even get into a new Street Fighter these days outside of a little skin. He's not Akuma, he's Garuda, okay? Anyway, I am not gonna sit here and pretend to you that I know what garage shading is, how it works, or how exactly it differs from,
boilerplate, regular run-of-the-mill ass shading.
But I saw it back in 1999, and even on my modern TV, I see the massive difference that it makes. All right, so I may not intuitively know what that is because I'm not a programmer, but I can read, and it's interesting how much it changes the feel of games that utilized it, Final Fantasy VII included, and how it provided a much more textured, gradient look next to the flat polys of early PS1 games. Cars and courses have depth. Background elements pop off the screen. This was one of the most technically impressive games ever at the time and still stood toe-to-toe with games in the following generation for at least the next few years. And even beyond the shading techniques, the lighting tech in R4 had to be seen to believe. I remember the first time I passed through a dimly lit tunnel and having my little mind blown as the soft yellow glow of the wall lights shimmered off the roof in seeming real time. Gran Turismo may have been the king of the visual hill before it, but Type 4 came in with a style and verve all its own. Frankly, it still holds up visually. It's clearly a 5th gen game with opponent vehicles popping through the background at times, some polygonal seams and some drab colors here and there. I blame Ray Tracer, but I was amazed how clean and how well everything still reads today. The game was a technical marvel, and 25 plus years later, still does what it needs to do. But one aspect of Ridge Racer Type 4 that is absolutely positively timeless is the soundtrack.
I cannot believe there has never been a vinyl release for this masterpiece. Like, I'm getting madder every time I go search for it and expecting it, and it's not there. It never pops up, and Namco, I will pay you any amount of money. Just, please, just bring the vinyl out. I beg of you.
Type 4's OST is truly unrivaled. The house, the breakbeats, the jungle bass infused opus of the Namco sound team has not aged even a moment since it was released. The game's soundtrack, directed by sound producer Hiroshi Okubo, is critical to the legacy of R4. It really heightens this game's distinct aesthetic, giving each race a unique rhythm that hits different with the fans and influenced future racing games for many, many years. We've already heard the game's initial track, Urban Fragments, that plays during the intro FMV, so, let's talk about it. Composed by Kota Takahashi with vocals from Kamara Loveless, the soft roads that lead into the opening lyrics from Kamara let you know exactly what's next. This is a masterpiece of house vibes with beautiful bridge segments, staccato strings, glitchy hi-hats, and goosebump-inducing harmonies and runs that hit me so goddamn hard. I had to run it back immediately when I booted the game up. It's so good. I mean, this sits cleanly amongst the Third Strikes, Jet Grind Radios, and Sonic R's for the title of Ultimate Late 90s Video Game
Bangers.
I could gush forever and ever about practically every song on this game's soundtrack, but let's just hit some of my favorite highlights. Naked Glow would seriously fit right in with a couple,
all right, that's cool,
and Dudley throwing a rose or two at your noggin. The way that bass line just bounces between the guitar licks as it breaks down into a b-boy infused breakbeat / horn section and funk inspired rhythm, finally giving way to the nastiest licks on a bass guitar slapping that I've heard in some time. Is this Nina Williams circa Tekken 2? I mean, good God. This is just goat shit. Goat shit. The shit of the goat. And I love this song so much. I'm gonna beg you again, Namco, give me the vinyl. Please, I will continue to ask. Silhouette Dance comes by way of Asuka Sakai, and I just love the nighttime aesthetic of this one. Roads interlope amongst breakbeats and hip-hop style bass lines. The heavy kick is so bouncy and rhythmic with gorgeous underwater pads coming in near the end. I love how that flute just creeps in and then this piano top line that dances around the pulsing bass. I pick this song whenever I'm on a course that plays at nighttime. It just feels like you're going for a midnight joyride with the boys. And Rev Limit Funk sounds like it belongs in Tekken 3 full stop. You can't convince me that they didn't produce it for that game or the other way around, whichever. The last track that I'd like to talk about is Quiet Curves. The drums start out super simple with a more hip-hop inspired feel to them. Then you have these ascending synth lines against Rhodes and pianos, which honestly, man, has one of the most incredible piano passages that just float off that classic West Coast synth whine. Oh boy, it is transcendent. With a jazzy upright bass, this is just the ultimate late summer jam. The melodies and instrumentation choices in this song never failed to impress and to inspire me. I was so inspired, in fact, that I put together my latest track, Type 4 Type Beat, with the game soundtrack at the front of my mind. Produced entirely in Bitwig, utilizing a variety of instruments and plugins from Arturia and other manufacturers, this one is sample free, minus of course the vocal chops taken directly from the game. Now if you enjoy this beat, go ahead and leave your comment with better luck next time in there, and I'll consider dropping this one early as a single from my next album, TBD, that's coming in 2025. Now the music is the star of the show here, but the sound effects do a great job conveying all the info that you need. Every menu sound understood the assignment, with swipes and swishes that are straight up iconic. The rev of the engine, the sound of your car fishtailing around a corner, it's very
Grippy.
pun intended. Oh, and also the announcer is so late 90s, like what good video game didn't have a snarky announcer that would talk equal parts shit and be the ultimate hype man? The way he talks that talk after you win the Grand Prix is just beautiful stuff. Now finally, I'd be remiss to not talk about the Joy-Con and the Pocket Station integrations. The Joy-Con was something I've never had the chance to actually touch, but it was this super interesting controller made specifically for this game. And it had a jog wheel, right there in the middle. Now the cool shit about it was it provided force feedback, so you felt every bump and corner through your controller. Pretty far ahead of its time. It was a super dope idea, but clearly did not do very well, as it wasn't supported much into the 2000s. Pocket Station? All right, I blame Tamagotchi for this. Again, Gen Z, just bounce for this one. Anyway, the Pocket Station allowed you to trade cars with your homies and even unlock some yourself. This was not a peripheral that was ever released here in the West, so I've never even seen one. But it was also a pretty cool idea as well. Now, the one piece missing in the PSN version of this game was the re-release of the first Ridge Racer on a separate disc at 60 frames per second, titled Ridge Racer High Spec. I remember I played this for a bit when I got the game back in '99, but it really was mostly a novelty. Pretty sweet to get to see a game going that fast at a locked 60 back then, but considering it was just the first game with visual refinements, it was easy to play it, a few times and sort of just leave it in the case and forget about it. We were all there for R4. Now, what Ridge Racer Type 4 did has never been replicated, even today. The perfect balance of arcade and semi gameplay, moody nighttime vibes, and bright, beautiful sunshine. Soundtrack to absolutely die for. Graphics that were so far ahead of their time that they still work today. Aesthetic. And a supremely fun gameplay loop that reminds us that sometimes, just sometimes, everything can come together to coalesce and make the perfect version of a game. I have to tip my hat to the 33 folks that worked on this game, because it truly ended up being a magical piece of software. One of the greatest games of 1999, and one of the greatest racing games ever. Ridge Racer Type 4 stands as a stylish and nail-bitingly amazing game of a long since dying breed. Now, if I could get anything from Namco right now, besides maybe a new Katamari, it would be a Ridge Racer. Get to it, Nakamura Manufacturing Company, and print the dang OST to vinyl, you cowards! Now, if you've enjoyed this video, check out this video here next to my head, where I give the very first role-playing game I ever played the exact same treatment as this video you just watched. The ultimate review of Shining Force. Like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.